I do get dinged on that a lot. If you scroll through my Facebook page, and for those of you who are not following me on Facebook, you can go to Raphael James Live 5 News and follow my page. We have these kinds of conversations all the time. No matter what I post, and many of the people who are in this program right now will tell you that there will be those who say you are biased, you have a biased opinion, and you are not being objective. But that's not true. So, to your point, Oscar, and I want to give you an opportunity to continue. I do have opinions, I do have thoughts, and I share them with my friends. But on social media, on things that are related to my my job, I don't, because I can't afford that. Remember, we were talking about credibility. And if you feel I'm coming from this angle, from the left, and somebody else, I can't afford that. I need you to know that what I'm telling you is what I've been told. I'm delivering the information to you, and I'm allowing you to make up your own decisions about what's being said. I don't have a dog in the fight, so to speak. So, in that regard, no, everything I do, I try to do it straight down the line. Now, on social media, will I push you with the other side? Will I play devil's advocate? Oh yeah, in a heartbeat, because I want to get to the heart of what it is you're actually feeling. For those of you who are joining us on Facebook and YouTube, thank you very much. You can put your thoughts and comments into the comment bar, and we'll get them on. We're talking with several people tonight about what is keeping us from being more united in this country. And we're hoping that we can get to a point where we can get beyond those things that divide us and stay into where we can be united. And Oscar, I'm going to allow you space to continue your thought.
All right. That's good that you do that. That's awesome. Right. Just to add to my point, also we haven't had a unifying leader in a while. We all thought Obama was going to be, but he didn't. He didn't. Neither did Trump. And it's like we haven't had a leader that speaks to basically both sides of this country, which is this left leaning and the right leaning. And I think we need that. We need a unifying person who's like, you know what are your concerns and issues, and what are your concerns and issues, and let's try to fix it. Like we had, there's a baby in the background. All right. We've had Trump, who only really focused on his people, and then Obama tried, and but then Obama basically gave rise to Trump. People were like, "No, fuck this," and then we got Trump for 4 years.
Can I respond to that?
Sure.
Was Obama's message not unifying, or was it not willing to be received? And I'll take that question back to my original statement. We have to really get at the heart of people. And so I don't know if he wasn't a unifying president. It were people willing to receive his message?
Shakim, I totally agree with you. I think that he tried very diligently to be a unifier for the United States. But I think that also, because he was the first Black president, there were so many hopes and dreams and wishes that were pinned on him. And because his message was not received in places of power where he could actually make a change that stood the test of time, I think that a lot of people walked away disappointed in what he was not able to do. And I think that it's a little unfair to blame him as the person without looking and taking those facts into account. Back to something that Raphael said about social media. One of the things that I appreciate about you, Raphael, and the reason that I follow you diligently from where I am, is because you have the ability to push the envelope without pushing your opinion and making it something that you're forcing people to swallow.
Thank
And
you.
that's one of the things that I appreciate about you. And I think that sometimes a lot gets confused on your page because people take you pushing a conversation to the edge to get to the heart of the matter, or a point is you pushing your opinion. And that's not actually true. I think that we've had a lot of opinions for years and years and years. And the only reason that opinions are so well known is because of the age of technology and because of the age of social media. And no longer are your opinions just your private thoughts or things that are known among your friends. But if you take, like we're doing now, center stage and put yourself out there, now your opinions become fodder for everybody.
Right.
And so I think that there is no longer a level of privacy, and because everybody's opinions are so just, everybody is just out there everywhere, everybody's talking, everybody's speaking, everybody's writing, everybody's posting, everybody's texting. I think that we know so much more now than ever before, and it's very difficult to filter out what needs to be filtered out, opinion versus fact.
And that goes back to everybody being their own media platform. Everybody has something to say, and everybody has a platform from which to say it. So again, back to my analogy, when I was growing up, there were 3 television stations. Now there are 30 million gazillion, because each one of us has a way to get our message out. All we have to do is go and hit go live. And now we are preaching that message, whatever it is, to as many people as have the time and capability to hear it and listen. I want to go through some of the comments. The question today, we're asking, what's keeping us from being united? Here's some of the people on my Facebook page who are responding. This is Nolan, says historical racial negativity, political impropriety. Thank you, Nolan. And this is from Teresa. Media and people are being exposed for who they really are. In some cases, I assume so. Aldine says, I believe people were not ready for him as an African-American president. That was relating to President Obama. One more from Marzell, who says, a lot of folk did not accept us having a black president, and we'll continue to try to get more of those on as well. But I want to hear from more of you as well. Now, we talked about agreeing to disagree. And that is something that I'm big on. Why is it that we can't agree to disagree? Oscar, you mentioned that if you say you're pro-abortion, people close the window. They stop listening. There are other things you can say. Matter of fact, let me back up, because I had a rule a long time ago. When you're at work, don't talk about politics. Don't talk about anything at work except work. And it's a good rule. It's a smart rule, because once you veer off into that and start talking about other things, then you start stepping on people's toes. People start getting into their feelings. So that is one way to ruin a friendship sometimes, when you start talking. But if you're going to have a meaningful relationship, how can it be meaningful if you can't talk about those things that you agree and disagree on? So somebody in this group probably has a good way of how we can bridge that gap and have conversations with people who may not agree with us, but at the end of the day say, I still love you though. So that's my question to everybody here. How do we do that? How do we have hard conversations, but not throw the people away for their opinions?
I can definitely chime in there. That's something that I pride myself on doing, is the fact that I try to have, especially on my show, these difficult conversations in ways where people feel okay with sharing their true thoughts. Because a lot of times what happens is, especially in the era of social media, and this goes back to your point about there being 30 million different platforms for people to speak on.
Mm-hmm.
Well, because there's 30 million different platforms that people speak on, there's this thing on social media, on Facebook especially, where you can just block somebody, right? So now I'm going to block everybody who doesn't think exactly the way I think. And because I block everybody that doesn't think exactly the way I think, now my timeline is filled with people who only think what I think, which means I'm not actually going to learn anything new. I'm not
Correct.
seeking information. I'm seeking affirmation of the things that I already consider as truth.
And now you're in an
And I
echo
think
chamber, right?
Yes, and so now anytime, so now if I'm somewhere else, say I'm at the grocery store and somebody expresses something that my timeline doesn't reflect, no, everybody thinks the way I think. The news that I watch thinks the way that I think. The people that I talk to on a day-to-day basis think the way that I think. I don't talk to people who don't think the way that I think. So now I'm in the grocery store and I hear somebody express something that goes against what I think, and now something's wrong with them. It's not that there's like half of the world that thinks completely differently than I do. It's something wrong with this specific person. And I think that's the crux of a lot of the things that we're talking about. So what I try to do, especially in those situations, is when I find myself in a situation on social media where I am having a contentious discussion, I stop it right there, because I realize that a lot of people, when they do it, one, they're trolling, and they don't know how to, like, they're doing it for an audience. So I will inbox them and say, hey buddy, let's meet for lunch. Let's meet for coffee, sit down and talk about this thing. And let's find out the things that we actually do agree on. Because I promise you, when you don't have an audience, we're going to find a whole lot more that we actually agree on. And then we'll be able to get to the things that we disagree on and find common ground. But so many times that does not happen.
Very true. And
I agree with that.
And what you were saying, we insulate ourselves from any other thought process or any other point of view, and that's dangerous in so doing. And so is the algorithm, because the algorithm of these media companies, they give us what we want. They bring back to us exactly what we want to see. So that is a part of it as well. Somebody else was going to say, was that you, Sean?
What that does, Ross, and thank you for inviting me to the stage. What that does is it feeds into this us them mentality that we have in the United States. And regardless of who the us is and who the them is, we have this mentality of, that we're not together. And so when you ask the question, what's keeping us from being united, it's because we have this us versus them mentality versus a we mentality. We are the United States. You have folks who are saying, this is our United States. This is our country. And when you're saying our, who are you then excluding? Because we're all living in this United States. And there are some who claim themselves to be first-class citizens, and then everyone else is second or third-class citizens, when we're all U.S. citizens,
right.
And therefore we should all be united.
Right. Agree with that.
Hey, may I jump in?
Yes, KJ, go ahead and introduce yourself and go right ahead.
Hey, how y'all doing? First of all, I think a lot of the things you guys said are spot on in terms of being insular. There's a really good documentary on Netflix called The Social Dilemma that shows the scientific, the empirical data that shows that over time, social media has actually made us more polarized than it has brought us together, because, as Rajon said, we can just block the people who don't think like us or don't believe what we believe. And then to Sean's point, and then I'll, put myself on mute to see what others think. To Sean's point, I think one of the things that we do not do a good job of, for whatever reason, is we can't come together and have these conversations because we have created a climate where it's not okay to fail, right? A lot of companies would prefer to not take a stance on something in the fear that they will be, as Rajon said, be canceled or be thought of as, on the wrong side of history. And because it's an all or nothing game, it's a zero-sum game, we have lost the willingness to try to make amends or try to reach across the aisle. It might not work, but, because of social media, if it doesn't work, that could be the end of you. Adrienne Marie Brown says that in order to create lasting change, it has to be one of the most pleasurable experiences on earth. We do not make change pleasurable because people know in the back of their head, if I was a racist and I don't want to be racist anymore, if I was a bigot, if I was, anti this or whatever, and I try to come out here, people are going to pull my quote unquote receipts, and I'll never be given the opportunity to move forward.
KJ, let me ask you this. What if you're not a racist, but maybe you have racist tendencies? And let me clarify that again. What if you're not a racist, but you realize that some of your privilege and some of the things that you enjoy are the result of someone in your line being racist, then where does that leave you? How do you deal with that?
Again, part of white privilege, excuse me, is the privilege that they don't have to face these realities, and because doing so will A, put them at a discomfort, or B, possibly ruin their life. It's much easier to just pretend that those things doesn't exist, or say it wasn't me, and don't be a part. Try to be a part of that solution. This environment where we do not allow people to fail really just creates an environment where people are too afraid to try, and it's that lack of trying, not the lack of failing. It's the lack of trying that prevents us from getting together and creating the kind of nation we want. And I say we collectively.
Okay. And we want to keep the conversation going. I want to go back to my Facebook group, invite Erica up. And if you have something to say, please, in the Clubhouse chat, just raise your hand and we'll get to you. Martha says, number one, maybe a good dialogue would start with what we have in common: love for country, respect for Constitution, and more. Two, I do think that people need to understand the difference between facts and opinion. And God, is she right? Anybody else want to address what Martha says?
I think the reason why we struggle to find a common ground is because we aren't listening to one another. We often enter conversations not willing to hear, but often to defend or to respond. And so when we enter a conversation that way, we never really understand or get to the heart of the issue. Now, I will say, challenge a little bit of what you guys said as far as creating your environment and ensuring that you have a diverse school of thought as for your environments. I can go there with you to a point. I am the person who will block certain people because at the end of the day, I also have to protect my heart and my environment.
Okay. All right. And that's fair. There are some people who I haven't had an opportunity to hear from yet. Kayvon, Felicia, Erica has joined, Crystal Matthews. Crystal, do you have anything you'd like to add to the conversation?
Did you call on me? I'm sorry.
I did. Just wanted to welcome you. Introduce yourself if you have anything to add to the conversation.
Yes, I did. I'm a little late coming into the room, and I apologize if any of what I'm getting ready to say has already been said.
You're fine.
But I think that on a more holistic level, we have now created a society that is so spoiled and so self-serving that they can't withstand any amount of discomfort. So when you start talking about what people look for as far as information, running right into what Shakima said, more people are looking to affirm what they already believe rather than looking for an unbiased kind of approach to everything. And so what happens is, now that you have social media, you can get with other people who will affirm you a whole lot faster than you could with your organic outreach in your normal life. Mm-hmm. And so now we see the influx, and people can't, the thought of being wrong,
right,
or the thought of something you believed in your whole life not being true, that is devastating to some. And honestly, based on sheer mental capacity of where we are as a society, a lot of people can't handle that.
Right. Back to some of the comments. Thank you very much. Those very interesting points too. David Morris, I want to address this. He says, Twitter, as we're talking about social media, he says, Twitter is blocking one side only. How does that unite us? No way to have a conversation. And how do they expect to re-educate us to their views if they continue that behavior? I've addressed this before. Give any of you an opportunity to talk about it before I go on.
So I'm sorry, I gotta jump in here.
Don't apologize, brother.
I'm glad he made that point, because I think this is something that we really need to discuss, right? So there's two sides of this, right? Nobody is blocking a person for being a Republican. Nobody is blocking anybody for conservative views. People are blocking people for espousing falsehoods openly and spouting racist rhetoric. That is the thing that's being blocked. And I want to juxtapose that question this way. If we found out that there was a Twitter account that was spreading was planning a get together for pedophiles to get together and molest children, would we want that to stay up on our social media? I'd say no. If we were to find out that there was a website where criminals were planning armed robberies, would we want that site to stay up? I'd say no. So why is it that if we already have seen the residual effects of these things happening right in front of our noses, why would we not as a country take steps towards making sure those things don't have a commonplace on the internet or otherwise? Because that's what's being blocked.
And I think we put ourselves in an interesting position there with this. Now, Twitter is a company, and that's one of the things I've said. Twitter is a corporation. They can do what they want to do. They can make up the rules. That's not blocking freedom of speech. That's them operating in their agreement. When you signed up, you agreed to that by using the service. So to me, that's different. Now, if the government was saying, no, we are going to make Twitter block your site, we do not want to hear what you're saying. Now, that's censorship. That is where you do have a First Amendment right. But social media is not that. So that's what I wanted to add. Anybody else, go right ahead.
And now it's a matter of safety. Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Go ahead, Eric.
Okay. Eric, and then we'll go to Shakima.
Okay. Hello, everyone. I'm so glad to see this room packed, not only on here, but also on Facebook. And I think my belief is that beliefs, to kind of go along with what Rashawn said, was when someone's beliefs are being threatened, they will protect it at all costs, even if the cost is actual, make it make sense. Cognitive dissonance is something that people will use to act without any remorse and any reflection and any real hardcore thought. Because our beliefs build the foundation on which we stand, which we act, the people who we talk to, the schools we go to, the food we eat, all of our beliefs, it drives that. So if there's anything that is going to threaten our beliefs, we protect it at all costs, even if something is being introduced into a conversation that is factual, not off of feeling, not off of emotion, but factual. If it makes us feel a certain way, we tend to disregard it, dismiss it, because it is now threatening our belief. And if our beliefs are threatened, then everything that we know is not true. It shakes us up. I've never seen a room that's gone under renovation, or a home or any type of structure that's gone under renovation and it be neat. When things are disrupted, there's a whole lot of dust flying. People don't like dust. People are allergic to dust, and it's not comfortable. So when things begin to get uncomfortable, people act out in a certain way. Some people are triggered because the body has now learned certain responses to things that, bring back traumatic type memories, if you will. And so, and who's to say what is traumatic to one is not, a walk in the park for another. So it's the beliefs for me at the core of everything that allows people to determine whether they're going to have a conversation or if they are deeply rooted in having confrontation. And as you said, with Twitter being a private company and having that right to say, no, this is not what we're going to allow on our platform, people have to understand that there is a such thing as a conversation with, opposing views, because people are not dismissing perspectives. They're hearing and understanding what people are experiencing, their truths. And everybody interprets truths differently based on their experiences. So that is the thing for me that I believe is at the core of us not being able to come together because of belief systems and a lack of empathy, because empathy is a superpower. Until you can understand from somebody's point of view what they are experiencing, you'll never be able to really have a pure, genuine conversation.
But Erica, my belief, that's who I am. You can't challenge my belief, because if you challenge my belief and it makes me think about it and what you say has some credence, then that messes with me. Who am I? What have I
Well,
been
I'm on
believing?
life
Have I
and
been
liberty.
believing a lie my whole? No, no, no. I'm not going to accept that. Now you're talking about my grandparents and my parents and my people's people. You know, that's the problem we have when we start challenging people's belief systems.
Exactly right. And that's deeply rooted in tradition. A lot of people look at tradition as guidelines for how they should conduct themselves on a daily basis, even if that tradition is deeply rooted in something from four decades, 4 centuries ago. And what people need to understand is tradition is supposed to serve as somewhat of a foundation,
Mhm.
somewhat of a map, not a how should I say, a padlock, not a jail cell. You're
Mm.
supposed to look at tradition, what has traditionally been done, and see if that fits your belief, and if that fits how you want to live your life, then you have the right to go ahead and keep on believing with your grandmama and your granddaddy and everything else. That's how you get generational curses. And we got to have those, right?
My
Because
God.
you got to have something to whine about on social media. So, pardon people for wanting to hold on to the very things that they're comfortable with.
All
And
right.
when it's all said and done, you have to make a choice. Everything is going to either move you towards growth or move you towards stagnation.
All right.
Whichever one you choose, peace be unto you.
Yes, ma'am. I want to go to Shakim in just a second. Shakim, I want to get these a couple more Facebook comments in, coming right to you. Cindy says, too many people seem unable to separate emotion from intellect and to communicate well. Additionally, a lot of people seem to draw conclusions before ever truly listening to a different perspective. I can't heart that enough. Okay, Shakima, go ahead.
In regard to the censorship or the thoughts that one side is being censored, I think there has to be a clear and distinct notion that there is a difference between expressing your feelings and creating a sense of safety. We have to be protected. The same way you can't yell out fire
Mm-hmm.
in a movie theater is exactly why Donald Trump had to be stopped. And if he were to be censored, he would have been censored a long time ago because of some of the opinions that he stated. So there has to be some kind of boundaries. And as we celebrate Dr. King coming this week, I think one of his most profound quotes would be applicable in this instance. And basically he said, it may be true that the law cannot make a man love me, but it can keep me from lynching me. And so we have to have some sort of boundaries.
All right. Totally agreed. Agreed. Who is that? Rajan. Let me get Elizabeth. I think the name calling and putting each other down makes the division larger. I agree with that. Rajan, were you about to say something?
No, I was just applauding Shakima for exactly what she just said. That King quote is dead on, and the point that she made about the fact that even to the point that you made that this is not censorship. Censorship does not happen. It's like that's a governmental thing. And if the government was trying to block, I want to make sure I cleared that up. I don't think that the government should be blocking these things, even though the government does block certain things that could be considered free speech, to the point of I can't stand on an airplane and yell bomb.
Right.
I can't do that. Okay. They will pull me off the plane and they will govern me as such. But I think that to just to think about that idea that one side is being silenced. If one side is saying, like, and I don't even like the fact that it's one side that's saying it, because not even all Republicans are spouting these lies. Like, at what point do we just say, you know what, you're lying, and lying is not something we're going to value? Even as Republicans, I would expect Republicans who are really, to be honest, Republicans are known for being the most politically aware and politically active when you're talking in terms of knowledgeableness. Like that's the craziest thing about these past 4 years to me, is that I've always been able to count on the fact that Republicans really just run on logic. It's not an emotionally based thing. But that seemed to be thrown completely out of the window in just in an effort to boost up this character who isn't even a Republican. But that's a whole nother issue for another day. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
You talked about logic, and I juxtaposed logic with passion or emotion.
Yeah.
Is one better than the other? Is one the appropriate way to operate? or can you do both? Because if you look at some of the Facebook posts, a lot of people make arguments off of passion, very little facts, but a whole lot of passion.
I'll let somebody else take that. I don't want to over talk anybody.
That's,
You know me, I'll do
point
it.
made with that.
Go ahead, Felicia.
Well, I think passion is one way to put it, but we can talk policy all day between Democrats and Republicans and what they want to set as policy, conservative versus liberal policies. And that's fine. I don't think that there's a lot of pushback between the fact that there are distinctions there and that I may feel differently about it. And we can talk about it. But when you have groups of people, and for me, I'm from the Deep South, lived in South Carolina my whole life. And I see that some people who believe what you believe have rebel flags, then it's difficult because that's already an emotional place for me, because that means you don't even value me. So I can't listen to your policies because I now feel disrespected. And that's where I think you see people blocking, because it goes to a different place for some of us. And it's difficult to kind of just look at it and say, is this okay? Do you believe what this person over here believes? Because they got a rebel flag over there. So what? And so trying to take it back to what policies are we voting for? And do these people represent those policies? I don't know what Donald Trump represents, but if he represents your policies, but the same people who support him with you were just at the Capitol acting a fool.
All
and
right.
I see. So then it gets it away from, okay, let's just have a conversation, to has this gone too far?
All right. So I got to put a pin in that right there, because you brought up the flag. So let's stay there. Let's go there for a minute. The Confederate flag, I'll speak for myself. For some people, that flag brings up some not so pleasant memories. It doesn't, it's like a swastika. And I think people understand that. However, another group of people, those who wave the flags, not all of them feel the same way. Now, don't really want to go off into that, but back to a point that Oscar made a little earlier, we can show a side of ourselves, and then that shuts down anything else. The person holding that flag, let's just say for hypothetical purposes, is a great person, salt of the earth. They just have a different way of thinking than perhaps you or I. We can't get there though because of the flag. So are we shutting people down based on certain symbols? And it doesn't have to be a flag. It can be a hat. It can be a phrase. You understand what I'm saying?
I do. And this is how the standpoint I've taken it, Raphael. If I'm in a relationship with my husband and my husband is telling me wearing the sweatshirt that my ex-boyfriend gave
My
me
God.
offends him. How can I boldly continuously flash in his face this sweatshirt based on how it makes me feel? And that's how I present the argument to the flag. You're telling me it's your heritage, but I'm telling you it's hurtful to me. And if you're interested in being in a relationship with me, are you going to continue to put something before me that hurts me?
That's a great way to put it. Thank you very much. I'm with Team Dre all day, just letting you know.
And you know that wouldn't happen, right?
I know that wouldn't happen. Hey, Plain Jane is just joined the stage. Would you introduce yourself and let us know what's on your mind?
Before she does, Raphael,
yes,
can
sir.
I just want to remind everybody that Raphael is broadcasting this, recording this conversation is being broadcast on Facebook Live. So just want to make sure you guys know that when you're speaking.
Yeah, it's on Facebook Live and YouTube.
Thank you, Rashawn, for making me aware. Thank you, Raphael, for even having this room. That topic
Thank you.
interested me and to come in here. Shakima, I'm kind of interested in hearing what you said again. I know it's probably, I don't know if you mind saying it because I came in at the end, so I was interested in what you just said, Shakima, about the situation you were trying to describe.
Is this about the flag, or was that before?
I came literally at the end when she said something about a sweatshirt or something.
Yeah. All right. So
what I was, yeah. what I was just using as an analogy, I was saying if I'm in a relationship with my husband and I own a sweatshirt that an ex-boyfriend gave me, I'm not going to wear that sweatshirt in his face and push it in his face if he's told me this is a hurtful symbol. And so that's the way I feel about the flag. If I'm telling you, hey, you want to be in relationship with me, and I'm telling you this is a hurtful symbol, why would you continuously flash it in my face?
So which flag are you talking about? The Confederate or the actual USA flag?
Confederate flag.
Well, when I study the history of it, I don't find any offense to it. I look at the Civil War. I feel like, of course, I have no parts of it, but that was a historic time where they lost a lot of their family. They lost a lot of their grandfathers. I don't find it offensive. Now, if you got someone who's purposely using it, it's the ill intent. It's just like when some people use the Bible and they manipulate the Bible, the intention behind it becomes personal behind the person who showed it. I feel like it's a misunderstanding between us. When I did my due diligence and I looked up the history of the flag, I didn't take any offense to that stuff.
Would it hinder you from joining a conversation, an open conversation with someone?
No, the flag, no. That's just like what she said in the example with her husband. It's so one-sided to me. It's like, okay, I feel like this hurts me, but you still, if you want him to, you can't be a one-way street. You got to hear the other side.
Well said.
And find out.
But it's funny how the defense of the flag is that it's always in historical context, but it always shows up in a racist or white supremacist environment.
I get that, but people feel the same way about the American flag, which I don't get. Like they're almost making our American flag like the Confederate flag now. And it's like, I'm proud to be an American, so why should I feel? They feel the same way you feel about the Confederate. So it's like, are you going to keep this on going? It's just, I think we take things personal that we should not take personal.
Okay.
If that's
facts,
I don't have to show.
I think it's the blood. Yeah, I think it's the blood on the flag that kind of makes it personal, and
blood on the
violence
flag.
behind. Yeah, I think the violence in the attacks that were done against a certain race of people that does make it offensive. But I do appreciate your perspective. And
King, go ahead. I think you were trying to say something.
What's going on, Raphael?
Hey, how you doing?
Man. Listen, I'm good. I just wrote my book, Self-Love is Not Selfish. Let me say I agree with Plain Jane. First of all, I don't care about the flag. You lost the war. Second of all, this is the problem. We're trying to put everybody under the sheets. We're trying to erase a horrible history, right? And people need to see this. People need to see what went on. These kids need to understand what happened. You need to understand that they weren't fighting to free the slaves. They were fighting to keep the states with the Union. The more and more you erase things, the more and more you try to get Donald Trump out of the White House because he's racism. He's responsible for that, as if we weren't on a plantation. You look dumb, you sound scary, and you're not ready to have the difficult conversations that are needed to be had in this country. Shout out to Raphael for this topic. What's keeping us from being united? The truth is we were never united. Thank you.
Okay. And I appreciate your thoughts. So how do we get there? Because all of these things, we can't change our history. We can't change what happened. And I posted a post the other day on Facebook, the last few lines of the pledge, indivisible with liberty and justice for all. And I got a lot of different comments. Some said, yeah, right, that'll never happen. Others were like, yeah, that's the way it's supposed to be. But it's an ideal. It doesn't necessarily mean it's a fact, but it's something that we work towards. I think we can all agree that it would be better if we were united. That doesn't mean we have to agree all the time on everything, but if we could be united moving forward, you got to believe that's a good thing, right?
Well, you have to pay for your original sin first. You have to pay reparations first. You get what I'm saying? It's like
I do.
We're moving the goalpost past what exactly happened to our ancestors. Now I have love for everyone because through self-love, I understand that you become selfless. So I understand that, but you have to pay the wages that are owed so we can continue to have a different discussion. But if you just want to keep walking over it, there's going to be a lot of people that feel like, you know what, this isn't right. Let me stop you right here because you're saying you're for everybody, but your actions show different. That's all I'm saying.
All right, King. I don't know where you live or where your house is, but hypothetical situation.
I'm in Atlanta.
Okay. Hypothetical situation. Somebody comes and knocks on your door. They've got documentation. Hey, King, this house is not yours. It was taken from my family several years ago. We've finally been able to prove it, and you've got the week to move and go someplace else. How do you deal with that?
Go to court.
Yeah. Play J, exactly. Play J, go to court. I'm with you. Listen.
But
I'm with you, bro. I do want to be united. But my thing is, I hear black people saying, yo, I'm glad we got Trump out of the house because we need racism under the hood again. Wait a minute. That sounds like the Klan to me. Why do we want to hide from everything? Why are we trying to create a different America versus having a discussion about the old America before we try to usher in this new America? It's one thing Hillary Clinton said, and shout out to her. Because she said one thing to Black Lives Matter that I have to say, you don't change the hearts of people. I don't believe you change hearts. I believe you change policies. I think that's the realest thing ever. So shout out to you, Ruff.
Hey, I appreciate that. And I want to go back to my example because I don't want that to be misconstrued. My point is, if somebody came to me saying I have to leave my house, I didn't have anything to do with whatever you were just telling me about, but you making me leave my house, there's a problem. So now we've got to work past that problem. There are people who are saying, I didn't do it. So how do we move past that when it may affect everybody?
Hold on.
Go ahead.
That's a great thing you're saying, Raphael. But listen, there's still people that benefit from the slave trade the same way the majority of our people do not benefit, and the majority of our people are still in the ghettos because of the slave trade.
Without a doubt.
Yes, sir. So we have to talk about that, brother. You still benefit. The White House is still built by slaves. I'm not upset. I just think it's a conversation that needs to be had. I believe it's all about self-love. And you're absolutely right. But you got to take care of your original sin. You have to, because you benefit from your original sin.
Can I interject?
That's just a fact,
Please do.
Because I love the conversation that went from the flag to having the uncomfortable conversation to, how do we move forward? And I think something that took place not too long after the Mother Emanuel massacre in my Facebook inbox, maybe it'll shed some perspective on an approach we can take. So, being from Charleston, of course, a lot of your Facebook friends are from Charleston, and the young lady who I went to high school with, she's white. Of course, I'm Black. And so our perspective was different. This was right after the young lady went and took the flag down herself. And so
is that Bree Newsom in Columbia?
Right.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Exactly. So of course there was a lot of conversation. Everybody was in their feelings about, their take on why it should or should not be taken down. And so she inboxed me, and she knows that she can ask me. People know that they can inbox me and ask me a question, and I will answer it truthfully and without, being belligerent. And so, because I love conversation, it helps us to get, our side, our perspective of it, as well as hearing the other and coming to some type of common ground, even if we have to agree to disagree. So when she said what she said about the flag, and she was saying about the heritage, her family, she shared some things with me that, I didn't know. And I listened and I read and everything. And then I gave her my perspective and let her know that when I stood on the very ground on Cherokee Plantation in Yamasee, South Carolina, where my mother was born, and where we went years later to be able to have a family reunion. Of course, we had to get permission to go on the grounds that my ancestors actually took care of. Picture that. But I digress. So we're on the grounds and we go into what was then the big house, which is now a bed and breakfast type thing for tourists. And we walked through the front door and my mother got very emotional. And I was like, Ma, you okay? And she was like, this is the first time I've ever walked through the front of this house.
Wow.
And so, she, had a moment, and I stood there and just held her hand so that she could take it all in. Because I can't imagine all of the images in her head, the memories, the smells, everything that, was coming through. Because the body plays a trick on you sometimes. Not a trick, but you understand what I'm saying. The physiological responses we have to triggers and reminders and smells and all of that good stuff.
Right.
So standing there and finally being able to walk all the way into the house and going around, and she's telling stories, and then we come to a spot that there was nothing, you know, there that was historical, but she kept staring at it. And I said, "You all right?" She said, "That flag used to be right there."
Mm.
And that right there for me, I expressed to my friend in the inbox, I said, when I saw the emotions that my mother went through, and staring at a thing that was not there, but I knew the energy of it was still there. I said, that is why I'm okay with that flag coming down. I said, whether the flag stays or goes, I'm going to do what I'm going to do for my community anyway. I'm breaking generational curses. I'm doing all of that. I'm reaching out my hands across the aisle to the people who I know who are genuine. I said, so I understand and I respect your perspective because that's your family heritage.
Mm-hmm.
I said, and I'm presenting to you my family's history with your family's heritage. I said, so it's not like I'm going to unfriend you. I'm not going to block you. I said, because you cool. You know, I remember us chilling every blue moon back in the day, back in the 90s, you know. I said, I just want there to be an understanding that we have a different relationship with something, and it could go left, but it can also go right. I said, so how do we move forward from here? If people would take the time and the energy, I mean, we ain't got nothing but time. We got even more time now. We under quarantine.
Mm-hmm.
But if people would take the time and the energy to pause and remove ego just for a second, not feeling, not dismissing your presence, but remove ego and the want to be.
She may have dropped out there.
I got a phone
All right.
call.
Yeah. So again, what I'm hearing,
And it's not so much historical if you think about the fact that it continues to present itself in a negative way. Dylan Roof. They just,
is it
you know,
presented that way or is it taken negative? And my thing for me is, and I think what goes back to King's book, self-love.
Time, because there's no right or wrong answer.
For me, no, what I'm saying is I'm not going to be affected by the next person's what I'm missing in our neighborhood is like I look at the Mexicans, how they wave their flag proudly, even the Confederate. Why aren't we doing the same thing? If we put more into our own flag and our own nation, we shouldn't even be concerned about the next person. I'm more upset about us not waving our African flags or having some type of representation. Like that's what my mind is at. Like I don't even think about what that flag means because I'm over here pondering why our community is not waving our own flag and representing our own heritage.
So I think the challenge.
I love it.
Milan, did you have something to say?
I just asked what for people that are like here in America, for her saying like our own flag, our own this, like where would we get our flag? The people that were born in America, like black people that were our ancestors were slaves, like for us, like where do we get that from? Where do we get our flag? Where do we get all of the originality for the people that's been here in America?
That's what we need to be more worried about. We've been supposed to focus on other people's flag and not our own, that we should have had one by now.
Facts.
To put half the energy that we
let them folk have that flag. They lost. Y'all keep losing.
And I don't think, I want to be clear.
About you hanging up that flag, but I understand that story about her mother touching my heart, though.
Yeah, and I think that.
Okay.
And I think that's, you know, to Eric's point, it is the emotion of the flag, and I don't think there is a fixation on the flag. Trust and believe we operate and flow in a lot of different areas that are moving us progressively forward. But at the same time, I'm not going to continuously allow you to wave something in my face that's disrespectful to me. And that's just my point. I'm not.
But they're waving the American flag, which is even more disrespectful, though.
Yeah.
Was the White House built by slaves? Can somebody talk to me? What are we talking about here?
Well, let's go back to what we're talking about because I don't want us to get too far off from it. And we're still on track. What is keeping us from being?
Like Raph went on mute.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. I apologize. So yeah, we are having the conversation. We're not too far off track, but what's keeping us from being united? And it sounds like right now for the past few minutes, it's been past hurts that have been have occurred in this country that have not been adequately dealt with. So before we get to a point where we can move forward, and I think King said it, we have to take the blanket off of those things we've been covering up, we've been hiding, and
Yes,
that
sir.
is something that has scabbed over, but it's not healed. I
Yeah.
want to go to some
Absolutely.
more Facebook comments. I don't want to neglect my Facebook family. Elizabeth, I think I may have gotten this. I think the name calling and putting each other down makes the division larger. Demetra, this is a good one. United means being vulnerable. Are we ready for that? Are we ready for that? Can you be united without showing some vulnerability? Can you have a
Wow.
discussion with the other side and not make yourself vulnerable? So, King, as you were talking, they have to pay. Somebody has to pay for the wrongs
Absolutely.
that were done. Can
Absolutely.
you find a way to have that conversation in
Absolutely.
the word I'm about to use is probably not the best one, conciliatory fashion, a fashion where
Yes.
it's not anger coming from both sides.
Absolutely,
Okay.
brother.
Okay. So how does that
Absolutely.
conversation begin? How do we get there?
Clubhouse.
Listen,
It's a good
go
start.
ahead, play. Go ahead. Listen, really, it begins with love at the core. You know what I mean? Because like Raphael said, listen, if it didn't have nothing to do with it, I understand. I'm not mad at anybody. It's not about being mad. It's about if something happens to him today and he worked for wages, his sons or grandchildren are owed those wages. So we have to talk about those we have to have those difficult conversations. And I believe that they begin with love. You know what I mean? And I believe it's about an objective truth and not a subjective truth. Let's just put the truth on the table and let's just talk about it. I think it's very convenient to come up with this COVID money. Everybody getting the COVID money. You know what I'm saying? 600 here, 1,200 here, 2,000. Hey, give those 11% of Black people those wages that were due to our ancestors, because this systematic racism has our people still struggling in these ghettos. And there are still people that benefit from this. So we should have the discussion with love. It shouldn't be about being racist and everybody upset and mad. Listen, we're not mad. We're being pragmatic. It's not optimism or pessimism. This is being pragmatic. This is something that is really real, and we have to deal with the original sin. That's it.
So, Rap, can I
Yes, sir.
can I jump in right there?
Please, by all means.
So I think that we've touched on a lot of things. I want to go back to what Ms. Erica was talking about in terms of that conversation that she was able to have. We keep using the terms, we have to have that conversation. That conversation doesn't happen without a foundation of trust, without a foundation of mutual understanding and mutual respect. That person messaged Erica in her inbox because they already had a foundational level of trust where that person can come to Erica and not feel like she will be condescended to or be talked down to.
Amen.
A lot of times when we try to have these conversations, difficult conversations, we want to dictate in the conversation. We want to talk at the person. We don't want to actually even put it in a way where the person could hear us, right? When that's our approach, when that's our engagement point, when that's where we start the conversation, well, how am I going to talk to you about a possible reparations if the first thing that I remind you is, oh, slaves built the White House, which is true, right?
That's
which is
a fact,
true.
though, God.
Which is true. But what we have to do, one, our political power has to rise up. Like if that's ever going to happen, Black people have to get way more political power than we currently have. That's just something that's going to happen. We're not going to get there with a vast majority of people who are not Black or who don't care about the plight of Black people in America in positions of political power. That's just bar none. We can't even begin that discussion until these numbers change tremendously. But I do think that there's a place to, like Raph was saying, to become united if I can simply invite or engage people who think differently than I do, not with the point of trying to show them how right I am about something, but the fact that we do have a common interest in this country working well for all of us. That's got to be the conversation that we can get toward, and that can only happen when we change our approach to the conversation.
Absolutely.
I don't think anything I can say is worse than what they have done to Black people. Right? We're talking
agreed. Agreed.
Hold on. Let's break it down. Let's break it down. We're talking about 250 years of slavery, right? Let's break it down. We're talking about 90 years of Jim Crow. We're talking about 60 years of separate but equal. We're talking about 35 years of state-sanctioned redlining, right? And like Ta-Nehisi Coates say, until we reckon with the compounding moral debts of our ancestors, America will never be whole. The case for reparations. That's all I'm saying, brother. But I agree with you. I agree
Totally.
with you. It's not about throwing anything in anybody's faces, but nothing I can say is worse than what you have done. How many dreams have been? How many dreams died on the plantation? How
Right.
many people did we have that was like Raphael that could be a great speaker, a great orator, right? That died on the plantation that had to work. So my thing is, if Obama can earmark $12 million and give it to the Holocaust survivors, we should be able to get something from what our ancestors did. That's all I'm saying, brother. And we have
I'm
to
with
get on
you.
one accord on this. That's
Yeah, I'm
all I'm
with you.
saying.
And
That's a great atrocity. We went through a black Holocaust. Nobody talks about it, but we're just supposed to move on while I signed the Def Jam. Jay-Z and L.A. Reid signed me the Def Jam. But I'd be a fool to think I don't have family in the ghetto.
Mhm.
This is just a fact.
And King, I don't think any of us are disagreeing with you. I think what we're saying is we can multitask. We can fight for reparations, and we can ask them to stop flying that damn flag in our face.
Absolutely.
Listen, but the problem is you talking about flying the flag, the same problem that I have with black people that are mad at Donald Trump. First of all, listen, we need people that are pragmatic. We need people that are truthful. Stop wanting to be lied to, people. You like a lot of us don't even know that there's a liberal agenda that's being pushed to push out God and to push out the church to bring in more big government. You don't even see it. But we have to have, I'm sorry, we have to have the difficult discussions. I'd rather have a Donald Trump in office than a Joe Biden, period. You know why? Because even though I don't agree, I do understand that I do understand that you're forthright. That even though I don't agree with your truth, at least I like you're telling me the truth.
So you believe that the election was
Listen,
stolen?
Well, okay, let's not go here because I think we're gonna go way
All right.
way left or
Yeah, you're
way
right.
right,
You're right,
if
Ralph.
you would. So
You're right, Ralph.
let me pull it back. Let me pull it back to here. There are people there. Well, yeah. But I don't want to get into Trump. Let the president go ahead and leave the White House, and we'll talk about him another time. But
12 million for the Holocaust survivors was a Joe Biden initiative, which goes to say,
Obama earmarked $12 million.
Yeah, it was because
Yeah,
he was the president, but it was Joe Biden who initiated.
okay, listen.
As
Listen,
usual.
I believe the Holocaust survivors deserve way more money than that. I see nothing wrong with that. I'm saying if we can deal with something we had nothing to do with, why not deal with the original sin of slavery? That's all I'm saying.
all right, and
So is our priority going to be a flag or a reparations? I'm just saying.
but see, there you go. So is our priority. So now we're getting into a manifesto, so to speak. What are we fighting for? What are the things that we want? And that's a great conversation to have. Tavis Smiley has had it, other people have had it, and I think it's one that we can continue to have. But again, we can do all of these things, but if we don't have anybody on the other side who's in a position to fight with us and present these things and get them passed, we still aren't going anywhere. So how do we become united? How do we get people on the other side of a conversation to entertain or you just listen to what you're having to say? So that's where I'm going with the topic. What's keeping us from becoming united, and how do we do that? Let me say this and I'll get right back to you. There are people in my inbox all the time, white people who hear what I'm saying, who don't feel like I'm being stirring up a racial pot. They hear me, but they don't quite necessarily understand it. And they don't necessarily have anybody else who looks like me to have this conversation. So like Erica was talking about, she has somebody she can talk to about it. If we can soften our stance some and not turn people off by maybe, I don't know, if we can make ourselves available to have these tough conversations, I think, and this is an opinion, I told Oscar I don't give my opinions much, but this is my opinion. If we can do that, I think we get closer to a point where we can be united, where we can say, you know what, I see your point. I didn't see it that way before, but I see it now, and we can move forward. Go ahead, King.
And in the spirit of hearing one another, Tasha has been on stage waiting patiently.
Oh my God, I'm sorry, Tasha.
Yeah, I think she has something to contribute.
Go right ahead.
Hi, thank you. I wholeheartedly agree said about having these conversations. Because until we learn to have conversations, and Raphael, you just mentioned it as well, nothing's going to change. And that's what I so welcome with 46, is the fact that we look at the people that are in these positions. We have groundwork set forth in front of us that things can change because they come from all different types of lifestyles and backgrounds. Until those things change, we won't see anything else trickle down. And that we won't be united until different people from different backgrounds can sit down and have the conversation to understand and empathize, not sympathize, but empathize with why people feel the way they feel. And until you do that, we'll never be united. So, we can talk about feelings with flags. Yes, we have feelings because it's in our face 24/7. And it always seems to be in a negative connotation when it happens. So we can have these feelings, and we need to understand and respect each other. And we can't do that until we all can come and talk. If you look at your panel, I'm looking, it's all us. We can't continue to have this conversation with just us. It needs to be more of a diverse group because we won't get with the Holocaust money that was given out until we start sharing why we believe these things should be happening.
We do have some more diversity in the room. Courtney and Christy have come to the stage, and we'll hear from them. But continue on. I just wanted to point that out.
Yeah, I saw them, and I'm just saying that these things have to happen. We can talk about it in our own groups, but until we open up the table and start looking around at our circle of friends or associates to have these conversations with, we don't have to agree, but we have to have the conversation because we won't get anywhere until we do.
Agree.
Thank you.
Agree. No, thank you very much.
Dare I say that we also need to learn how to have the conversations. If you notice, just about everybody has said, we have to have these conversations. We have to have these conversations. And that's true. However, we have to learn how to have the conversation. Something that I do with my students, because I'm a high school teacher, and they it's just like having a smartphone. And you got all of these things on here, but we don't know how to really utilize the smartphone. We know how to get on apps. We know how to double tap. We know how to summon Siri when we're stuck. But there are so many things that your phone can do that you don't know how to do because you haven't learned yet. So having a conversation, there's an art to conversation. Just like a person who knows everything under the sun, but they don't know how to teach it, there's an art to being an educator. So I think if we all, again, remove ego and wanting to be right and just wanting to be available, just like we discussed, remove ego, remove the need and the addiction to being right, no matter how much charisma we all have, because I know I'm a charismatic person, but I think I'm more charismatic that I want people to have that light bulb to go off for them in whatever shape, form, or fashion that needs to happen. I'm more concerned with the end result that everybody walks away better than what they came to the table. And that's for everybody. So we got to learn how to have the conversation, how to stop when we know we're getting ready to be too, I don't want to say too emotional, but, because emotions, they're there for a reason. But we have to learn how to step through leaving everything at the threshold so that when we come to that table, we're not automatically dismissing somebody who might have, either a black fist on a patch or, the Confederate flag, because we all do it. If we're honest, we all do it. We size them up. So
All right.
If we know how to do that, the emotional intelligence to do that, then we'll have some progress.
Sounds good. I want now, this is my first time on Clubhouse, so I apologize for those who I haven't gotten to. Thank you for holding on. I want to come bring Dr. Let me click on Dr. Lori. Welcome to the stage, along with Courtney, Christy, and Jacob. Dr. Lori, if you would introduce yourself and go ahead.
Okay, thank you so much. Good evening or afternoon. I've been listening, and thank you for having this discussion. I just wanted to listen, really, to be honest with you.
Okay.
But one thing I can probably contribute is that, someone was saying about how we have to soften, I guess, our conversation. But my thing is, how do you temper the truth? My father picked cotton in the South when he was 17, and now he's 76. And at one point in my father's life, he tells us all the time, he hated white people for what he went through picking cotton, called the N-word every day. And, we're originally from Florida, so he picked cotton down here. And what happened in Rosewood, I don't know if you know about that story, but how do you temper the truth? Sometimes you have to tell people the truth about what went on in Black people's lives. And the only thing that saved my father, he says this all the time, from hating white people was when he, at 17, he decided to join the military, and he wasn't became an Army Special Forces and intelligence. And that's the only thing that changed him, his hatred, because how he was treated. So what I'm saying is that a lot of times you need to tell people the truth and let the chips fall where they may. It's not like you're trying to be aggressive, because, you know, in my profession, I'm in a white male dominated profession. I'm a dentist, and there's so much microaggression that goes on dealing with some of these white people. And how do you not tell them the truth? And the truth sometimes is hurtful, but you got to tell them. You can't let them go to hell without telling them the truth of what's going on. One of the lead doctors, there's only 2 doctors in the clinic that I work, and I'm the only Black doctor there. And the Caucasian doctor asked me tomorrow to an office that's full. There's not any Black people that actually work. There's like 2 other Black young ladies that are auxiliary that work in the office. So she asked me to give a presentation on Martin Luther King tomorrow to the whole office, which is 18 people. And I plan on, giving them, telling about what Martin Luther King stands for, why he's important to us, and why we love him and revere him for what he tried to do. But one thing I can say, and people know this too, with me being in the office and dealing with patients, I tend to be very truthful about things. I can't sugarcoat it to make you feel better about what happened. This is what happened to us.
Mm-hmm.
And it's supposed to be, it's documented, and we got to tell people the truth, what happened. If it's hurtful, okay. Slavery was not a walk in the park. It wasn't like we had people, happy Negroes on a plantation having a good time. That's the narrative that they want to put out. I just told you my father picked cotton. And if some of the stuff that he said that happened to him at 17 and how he was treated, I'm just telling you, it's just very important that we have this conversation, but we got to tell people the truth.
Let me read this. Thank you very much for that, Lori. This post from my Facebook. This is from Joanne. Joanne says, I went to a wedding at a plantation, and while there, I couldn't help but wonder how the survivors of concentration camps would feel if people found those camps beautiful and romanticized them and held weddings and celebrations over the ground where so many of their relatives suffered and died. And then I asked myself, how is this not different?
Powerful. Shout out to the doctor. Well said. Well said.
All right. Courtney is on the stage. Courtney, thank you very much for hanging with us. And go ahead. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Like Dr. Lori, I'm primarily here to listen, but it's a good conversation on how do we have that conversation and how do you temper the truth. I'm in the middle of a discussion with my boyfriend where he kind of came at me about something, and his view is, well, I need to tell you what you're doing. And my view is, okay, but I'm not going to hear you if you come at me hard. That's just not me. Mm-hmm. I'm from Florida too. I'm from the South. So we tend to come at it sweeter. And I think it really comes down to, in some ways, trust and love, which is hard to get in a room like this. But when we talked about who's in your circle, I know he loves me. So when he tells me something, I know even if he's coming at it kind of harsh, it's coming from a good place. So if we could build relationships, I think that helps a lot to have the tough conversations.
And I agree with you. Thank you very much. That is the key. We shut each other down on social media. And if you go to my Facebook page and check out some of the conversations, they checked out a long time ago because they only came to say what they wanted to say, not to listen, not to be a part of a conversation, but just to say what they want to say. When you do that, when you come at me, it makes it difficult for me to hear what you have to say, because now I feel like I have to do what? I have to defend myself. But if we can get into a posture where we can sit down on Clubhouse and even on this platform, I'm grateful for this because we are here. We are sitting down and we are talking. and we can ask the question, well, what can I do to get you to understand where I'm coming from? So like you said, and Rajan and others, our circle, examine our circles. And maybe we need to search out people, Shakima, who have a flag, who are wearing your boyfriend's ex shirt, and just say, you know what, I'm not mad. I just want to have a conversation. Can you talk to me? We work together, and you know, we're pleasant at work, but you do this and I do this, and I just want to know if I can talk to you, if we can have a conversation.
I do want to say something a little bit about what Ms. Courtney has said. I believe one thing that I had learned a little bit later, which I think is very important at all age level, is learning the different forms of communication. The one that is more efficient is the more being assertive, and you being assertive is placing it more on the I than placing it on you. It's kind of placing the blame on somebody else. Meaning more so like, I feel that what you said was a little bit aggressive or whatever like that. It's more on that way, because when people feel like they're being attacked, they are going to be closed ears and they're going to be closed everything, and they're going to come with strong words. They're going to walk away, or they're just going to ignore you.
Absolutely.
So in order to get that communication towards everybody, I think that that's something that will help with making the U.S. more united, is that we learn the better form of communication, and then we all can be able to listen and hear each other out and actually come to common ground to compromise.
Very good. Good points. Thank you, Milan. I want to give Christy an opportunity. Welcome, Christy, to the stage. Christy, unmute yourself and introduce yourself to us.
Hi, Rafael and everyone. Thanks for the opportunity to have this important discussion and hopefully further this important matter. I had mentioned on the Facebook group, because I'm kind of parallel listening to that to see where the dialogue's going, but I was wondering if there's not a need for or a place for sort of a Truth and Reconciliation Commission to have these discussions on a more sophisticated platform than just social media, not so much Clubhouse. Mm-hmm. This is only, 12, 15, 30 people at a time in the room for a finite period. Whereas, the social media platforms are absolutely benefiting from fake people with the bots and manipulated numbers, but also fake outrage. And, the more outrageous your commentary, the higher it gets pumped into the algorithm to be seen. And it generates an atmosphere of division, distrust, and disauthenticity. Whereas, as the doctor had so nicely said, discussion and collaboration is so important. But when it's only on a one-by-one basis, then it's, poor doctor is going to have this discussion with her colleagues tomorrow, and it's just on her to have to represent, and it's on me in my discussions with my peers or, my communities to move the discussion forward. Mm-hmm. And I think that burden is a bit unfair. And so I would love to see it elevated, and hopefully, as you said, having the representation in Georgia and elsewhere is going to help that, but that's a long process. So my other question is, are people recommending watch the 13th Amendment on Netflix?
It's very powerful.
Well, I'm not talking about, race with my white friends anymore. Are people providing the tools so that people can educate themselves rather than existing in their own silos? And let's move this on up. And if I can just add one other thing, is when we were talking about the flags earlier, whether or not you feel the Confederate flag is offensive to you personally, as a societal, as a symbol, is being used, literally bandied about as a weapon, physically and metaphorically right now. It's not just something hanging on somebody's wall in their living room. But if you try and ask for a black flag, well, wasn't that tried with the BLM flag? That's as close as you can get, because there's not even necessarily a unified vision or definition of, is it a Black experience, African American experience, people of color? Where does that identity evolve? And so to have it on two sides just puts way too much pressure on it's bound to fail then. Mm-hmm. So I really would love to see you guys moving it up and raising this issue. Thank you.
Thank you. What platform do you envision this going on, Christy? How do we create that conversation?
I don't know, one of the new people on Biden's council or board or whatever, have this on a national scale as town hall discussions, not necessarily, maybe with the possibility of reparations and assuaging some of the anxiety and distress, and to air this on a national platform.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. Thank you very much. I certainly do appreciate that. Jacob's been standing by, and Clue is on deck. Jacob, thanks for joining the conversation.
Absolutely. I hope y'all can hear me. I'm in my car. But I saw your group here and what keeps us from being united, and I was so fascinated by the topic. But one, I should say thank you so much for having me on, even inviting me up to the stage. I don't have a whole lot to offer in the discussion other than I just want to say, one, I care and just am moved by a lot of what you all have said, and I'm just thankful for some of the voices that I've heard today. But also, I just want to say yes and amen to Dr. Wilson, Dr. Lori Wilson. I could have used some of your help this weekend. I got my wisdom teeth taken out, and that's kind of what hurt my interest in what you were saying. But also, just the fact that I think it's not the responsibility of people who have been offended to temper down what has happened. And I think it's completely, just coming from my perspective, I am so grateful when people are honest with me and say, hey, this is what's happened. Because I understand that I don't know, I don't understand, and I don't fully get it. And so I'm just so thankful and grateful for everything that everybody said here. And I hear you, and yeah, that's mainly the thing I wanted to say. I love y'all.
Well, I appreciate you, Jacob. Thank you very much for contributing. And I think this is, it's a beginning. Yes, people have had these conversations before, and these conversations will continue. But when we go beyond our insular group and take the conversation outwards and be brave and, initiate conversations with others, I think little bit by little bit, we get to where we're trying to go. Clue, thanks for joining the conversation. You can go ahead and unmute yourself, introduce yourself, and go right ahead.
Thank you, Mr. James. And shout out to King. I saw you in this chat, so I decided to join Mr. King Buchanan.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Shout out to you, brother. First, I want to say thank you to everyone for giving me a platform to be able to speak briefly. Thank you to Christy and Jacob, being Caucasian Americans that are able to put their pride aside and have a discussion as openly as possible. We hope that other people are able to do that. I want to first say that although I thank you guys, I just want to be sure to help you understand also the largest issue that we face as Black people is white supremacy is not just a construct, a system, an invisible hand. It is also the possibility, this psychological realm that keeps us contained in this idea of not knowing our identity and not knowing who or when to trust. So again, Jacob, I know you said you're just grateful to be here and things of that sort. And me personally, I believe you. I'm here with you and I'm speaking with you, and I'm open to hearing anything that you have to say going forward. If you followed me right now, I would follow back and I would hold you accountable for anything that you have said, but I would be open to hearing you. But the problem that we have going out in the world is that it is not so easy to know where and when that psychological realm that we have to deal with is present, because in aspects of if we were to talk about the workspace, how the first film truly produced, there were silent films before, but truly produced and marketed, mass marketed in the Hollywood industry was Birth of a Nation. It's what reinvigorated and galvanized the Ku Klux Klan, right? Created the docile and soft figure of the white woman for, we could say eternity, because it's as long as we've been alive for. also created the stereotypes of fried chicken and blackface and men wanting to take the white woman and rape the white woman and watermelon, things of that sort. And this is a film that was shown 29 times. I believe it was 29 by Woodrow Wilson. He would repeatedly invite generals and staff to see his favorite film, which was Birth of a Nation. And this was followed up with the most viewed film in American history at the time, before Titanic, which was Gone with the Wind, which again put us and subjugated us as, you know, the fearful Black person, the fearful Black individual subservient to other races. I think what keeps us in the US from being united is the idea that, yes, we've gone through different times and space of where, you know, we've had, for example, when we left slavery, right? Slavery was abolished. We were free from slavery. We immediately dominated the agriculture market. We weren't the most dominant because we didn't have the most population, but we were dominant in the agriculture industry. And the actual premise for the Ku Klux Klan was to burn down anything we created or try to hone in as our own. So just even trying to create communities, those were burnt down and broken down until we tried to create relationships, and those were burnt down and broken down and exacerbated, especially by John Ehrlichman, the Nixon administration, as John Ehrlichman admitted in a Harper's Magazine interview recently, that their primary focus was hippies and Black individuals. To tie it all together, I just think that the idea of keeping us united is also giving us the ability to, let's say we have two schools, right? There's a white school, primarily white school, or primarily white charter school, private school, right? Not saying it's not open to anyone else. And there's a primarily Black school, right? I want to know for 100% fact, no matter what, that it is funded equally, that gerrymandering and redlining is not going to decide the budgeting and funds that are given to our communities. Mm-hmm. And in that, no matter what, the only consequence, no, not even the only consequence, it will put us in a position where when we meet finally at the table, right, in these executive offices, we have been able to reach a common idea and conception of what it is to be an American. So far, we have not yet experienced fully what it means to be an American. And although I consider Barack Obama a Black man, I consider Kamala Harris a Black woman, at the end of the day, so far what has been marketed to us is that if we are fully Black, if we are dark-skinned Black, if we are darker on the spectrum of Black, we are not entitled to any position at the highest office or beneath the highest office or to run any of the sub-branches, right? I want actual opportunity, not just a producer job, not just, you know, actors getting more film roles, but for the funding to actually reach the communities that need it most at an equal level.
It's a process.
Yes, absolutely. And just the last point is that we have to also understand that reparations, right? It's not just that we're not having reparations discussed. HR 40, right, which has yet to be passed, is a bill representing the acknowledgement of reparations, the acknowledgement for the need of reparations, not even to pass it through, but not even to pass reparations, but to acknowledge that we need to have a discussion about reparations, and that is yet to be passed.
Right.
And the United Nations has pleaded for it to be passed.
All right.
That's my last statement.
Hey, I appreciate that, Clue. Thanks, brother. And yeah, and reparations is a huge topic. It's one that could easily take a few hours in and of itself. And perhaps we can do that. I appreciate the conversation. LaToya has been waiting patiently, and I'm getting ready to have to wrap this room up. But LaToya, I did want to give you an opportunity to go ahead and take the stage and introduce yourself. You there?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you for inviting me to the stage. Just wanted to jump in real quick. I think that, in my opinion, what's keeping us from being united is that oftentimes we come to the table with a closed mind and we don't listen to understand, but a lot of times we are just trying to get our points across. So I think that, you know, we come with an open heart, an open mind, and with mutual respect, we can at least meet in the middle and move from there.
All right. Thank you. And thank all of you.
Mr. Raphael?
Yes,
Mr.
sir.
Raphael,
Yes, sir.
could I just say like 2 sentences?
Go ahead.
I just want to say that I remember watching Game of Thrones, and there was backlash about the concept of there not being, more than just white people and things of that sort. I want us to also not forget that I don't want the discontinuation or diversion of like white culture. If Caucasian people have a culture, right, I want that also respected and them to have pride in it. But that pride must also come with the understanding that we have our own culture, that we are not just jokes, right? Like, I don't want to have to be fighting for the James Bond role or the Batman role, right? We need our own heroes as well. And our children to feel as though they can be their own beings and not just be, constantly asking for a role from white people.
Which was the power of Wakanda, Black Panther.
Exactly.
All right. Thank you very much. I want to go to a few Facebook posts and then we'll wrap it up. Things that keep us from being united. Lily says racial discrimination, ingrained hate, and entitlement. Marzell says we need to get in good trouble with great conversation. I agree. My homeboy DJ Cass, people are fixed in their ways and won't receive another person's perspective without listening. Too much talking, not enough listening. So until there is an American history in everyone's life, an American history X in everyone's life, there can be no uniting. We all need to know our history and where we fit in it and where we've come from. I've invited everyone.
Sir.
I don't think I've had an opportunity to invite Nat. I want to invite Nat to speak if they so choose. Who was that? Was somebody else have something to say? Nat, the stage is yours if you'd like to join the conversation before we end it.
Hey, yeah, of course. So there's one thing that kind of came to mind. And I think that there's one quote that a lot of us grew up on, and that quote is stranger danger. And growing up when we were kids, they continued to tell us, be scared of strangers. You're going to get taken. And we were blasted with news media that was saying, here's these kids that are getting taken. Here's these kids that are being pulled away from their families. And so that one little phrase with an entire generation growing up on it became scared to talk to people in public and scared to approach people with a demeanor that was ready for conversation. And that simple little fact, I think, stops us a lot from one, engaging in difficult conversations, as well as just engaging in some sort of, everyday conversations.
Sounds like you're saying, and I'm sorry to interrupt you. Please continue your thought, but it sounds like you're saying we need safe places to have these tough conversations.
That could be it. It could also be an acknowledgement of the fact that some of these conversations are difficult to have, but it's okay to have them with people that you don't know and with people that have conflicting opinions, and opinions that may or may not be ones that you agree with. And that seems to be the common conversation underlying a lot of what's going on in the U.S. right now. Is people, they are very so set in their thoughts and their own opinions that they're unwilling to accept that they may be wrong.
Okay.
And unwilling to listen to other ideas.
Got it.
Of course, that's an underlying theme for a lot of things. And then, of course, there are the more obvious things that are keeping us from being united. That is the acknowledgement of some of the racial and class divisions that we have today. But I think that other people can probably talk about that a lot stronger than I can at the moment. This is my first day on the app, so trying to get used to
this is my second. Welcome. Yeah, I'm enjoying it so far. And for those of you who have spent a lot of time on the app, please feel free to message me and let me know what I did wrong, what I did right, and what I can do better. I appreciate it. I really do enjoy these conversations, enjoy all of you wanting to be a part and then contributing in the way that you have. I look forward to doing this more often. I only thought this would be maybe a 30 or 40-minute conversation, but it looks like we've been on here for maybe 2 hours now. So again, thank you very much. Don't stop talking about the things that are going on in our country, in our neighborhoods. I think it's important for us to be able to express ourselves with our neighbors so that we can all grow, so that we can become united, so that when you see this question, you don't go, yeah, right, that'll never happen. But you say, you know what, we can do this.
That's right, brother. And listen, man, look. The truth exists within itself. And like she said, how can you temper the truth? So there's nothing I said that is worse than what has been done. And I'm not with making white people feel comfortable because they haven't made our ancestors feel comfortable and we're not comfortable here. And I got love for mankind, period. I got to say that, Raphael, white people, black. I grew up around all white people, black people, all that. But at the end of the day, I'm not going to sugarcoat the message for nobody because it needs to be addressed. And shout out to Raphael, and shout out to everybody. And shout out to Jacob, shout out to Christy, shout out to the doctor, shout out to everybody in here. Beautiful people in here, but we have to have the difficult discussions, and it might get ugly. You feel me? Thank you, brother.
Hold on.
To you all for being here. Too.
Thank you, King. Hold on. Yes, you can. Hold on 1 second though, because I want to address that, King. The phrase "you win more, you get more flies with honey than whatever."
Absolutely.
You know, so nobody's trying to catch flies, right? But the idea is, if you don't create a environment to have a conversation, why would I go and talk to somebody about something and expect them to move when I come at them threatening? And I'm not saying,
Raphael, hold on 1 second. Who is Martin Luther King, brother? He had peaceful protests, turn the other cheek, man. They sick dogs on our people.
Oh, well, so absolutely.
Listen, we can get on here and be on the high horse, but the truth is we bit the bait. I never really seen people that have been oppressed by other people really get along so good. So we're on our best behavior, Raphael. It's okay. But I'm saying this, brother, I'm in the field. I got to be in the field because so many of our people have died, bro. I don't think we really do. Do you know about the invisible church? Do y'all know about how the slaves used to gather together outside of the slave master's knowledge and talk about God, and how they used to pray to God that the slave master would just let them be free and see them as equals? Do we understand how many people really died out there? Do we understand how many of our people got raped and beat and all that? And we supposed to sit here and sugarcoat the message? Absolutely. When Martin Luther King got killed, listen, bro, whether it's Martin Luther King or Malcolm, they didn't like either one. So at the end of the day, let's just be real. Let's just be pragmatic. It don't mean I hate you. Right. Listen, a lot of times our passion get mistaken for anger. But my thing is, I never worked a job in my life. A lot of my people, they got to go to work and code switch. I'm not code switching for a motherfucker. I can't do it, Raphael. But I love you, brother. I love these white people here. I feel like we all humans. But at the end of the day, we didn't create the divide. We didn't create the racism. We didn't create this, bro.
I love you too, brother.
But at the end of the day, bro, thank you, brother. I love you too. And I'm saying a lot of our people died on those shores, bro. Like if we really go into it, bro, it would make you cry, man. Right. How many people, bro, we don't even know where we come from.
That's what I want to talk about before y'all close. Let me just say.
All right, let me get Lori in. Yeah, you're good. You're good. Go ahead, Lori.
Let me say this, Raphael. Let me tell you, you have been a great moderator.
Thank
you so much. I've been on this for maybe 2 weeks, and you have done a great job, really, truly. But what I do want to tell the room, too, I am an avid reader, and I want you all to read this, especially King. I want you to look at this, too. It's called Help Me to Find My People, the African American Search for Family Lost in Slavery. And it's actually written by Heather Andrea Williams. And I'm telling you, the first.
Say that name one more time, Lori.
Heather Andrea Williams.
Okay.
And it's Helped Me to Find My People, the African American Search for Family Lost in Slavery. The first two pages had me into tears because it actually documents exactly what happened to us, King, and how a lot of us never were able to find our people. We still don't know. I mean, you may be my cousin.
Mm-hmm.
You do not know what, and so this is a documentation. You can read it, and it makes you upset, but it actually kind of solves like palm on your soul, because what we need to realize that Black people and everybody in here, we need to check on each other, because our mental health has been over 400 years of brutal subjugation. Our
Yes.
mental health is at stake. The fact that we
Absolutely.
can go to work and deal with this. I mean, it's
Yes.
exhausting
Y'all
being a
powerful.
black person.
Mhm.
It's
Absolutely.
exhausting.
And
Okay.
And so what I'm
Africans owe us
saying,
reparations too. Let me say that too, y'all. Africa,
mhm.
we coming for you too. Y'all owe us
King,
reparations too. We
King,
coming
King.
for
No,
you
no,
too.
no, no, King,
Yes,
King.
I'm
Let's
coming
have a
for
private chat,
No,
bro. Let's have a
no.
private chat
Okay,
about
let's
that
do it
first.
right after this.
No,
Right after this, let's
let's
have
not
it.
All right.
that's
But
All
let's
right.
just talk about it. Let's
Okay,
talk
check
Well,
it
about
out.
it. But
well,
shout out to Raphael.
let's not
hey,
Shout
do
out to
that.
everybody.
I
We love
Let's
you.
not do
I
that.
appreciate it. Hey, thank you guys. I appreciate the thought. And again, King, nothing you're saying, I have any problems with.
We love you,
And
King. We love you, King.
in terms
Appreciate
of
it, brother. Love you
how
too.
we get what we want, people have disagreed with it for years. You mentioned Malcolm and Martin. We can talk about
Yes.
W.E.B. and Booker T. So,
Yes.
as long as we have the same goals and we're working towards the same goals, we're going to all be good. But I think the conversation is good. If we can keep having conversations and keep moving forward, I think we'll all get to where we want to be. Hey, I love you guys. Thank you very much for joining me on this Facebook chat, YouTube, as well as Clubhouse. Have a good night and God bless you.
Thank you,
God
Mr.
bless.
James.
God bless.
Follow
Love
back, bro.
everybody, man.
Follow back,
Jacob,
Mr.
what's up,
James.
bro?
All right.
Follow back, Mr. James.
Yes, sir. Definitely will. Definitely
All
will.
right.
And for those of you on Facebook, we've ended the Clubhouse chat. I appreciate you joining on as well and staying with us. I hope it came across in a manner that you could understand. I want to go through some of these thoughts that we weren't able to get in on the other. Nolan, a lot of times we let our personal feelings, emotions compromise our discussion objectivity, causing us to be discussion combative. I couldn't agree with that more. And then you have to think, what's the purpose of the conversation? Why am I talking? Am I talking to hear myself? Am I talking to vent? Am I talking to be heard? Am I talking to make something happen? If you're just talking to vent, you're just talking to be heard, then you're not doing much time listening. And the conversation, I don't think, is going to be so effective. So, yeah, Nolan, thank you very much. Kyle says, by blocking people, you are acting on communism. Okay, Kyle, I don't think I agree with that. I think that's a follow up on the Twitter conversation. So let's see. Okay. Brandon says blind loyalty to a particular party and blind patriotism is a factor. Believing that one side is completely right or completely wrong and judging a person's moral compass based on their preferred party. We have to stop finding our identity in our party. Good point. Viola, until we can have a real conversation and really hear each other and accept each other for who or the way they are, there will be no unity. If we are all alike, what would that look like? That would not be a good thing at all. All right. So, Joanne, don't erase the history, but don't honor that flag. She says we can't change history, but you can learn from it. We cannot change that we do not acknowledge. All right. So thank you again for all of the comments, all of the thoughts, for joining us. What's that, Cass? American History X is a movie reference. I haven't heard of it. I'll check it out. Shows how a mind can be converted. Very powerful movie, how simple meeting of the minds can change a generation. All right. I'll check that out. Thank you for the recommendation. Tasha says people want validation. People want to know that how they feel is understood and that they matter. I definitely agree. Hey, thank you all very much. I appreciate you joining me on Facebook, on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, all of those. And I'm on Clubhouse now. If you have Clubhouse, look me up and continue these conversations. Thanks. Have a great